Well, it's time for some more extra credit. This problem here, we need to do order of operations. And so we need to do this multiplication first. So this is going to be a -3 times 6 is -18. And then I'm just going to recopy the other two guys. And then we can do addition and subtraction as we go from left to right. So when I combine this one with this one, a +3 and a -18, these two are going to make a -15. And then finally, the -15 plus 2 is going to combine to make -13. So the answer, -13. All right, now on to some fraction fun. So with this one, it's multiplication and division, so we're supposed to go from left to right. So I multiplied these two first. So multiply on the top and then multiply on the bottom. So if I multiply on the top, that's going to be a 2. And if I multiply on the bottom, this is going to be a 15. And then I can actually go ahead and start this step. So dividing by a fraction means I need to change this to multiplication and then invert this fraction. So change this to multiplication and then invert, so this becomes 25/8. And then, as I mentioned in class, you could go ahead and multiply these two and multiply these two and then reduce, or you can reduce and then multiply. So if I reduce, first of all, that means I'm going to have 2, I would have 2 divides into 8 4 times. And then with a 15 and a 25, I could reduce if I divide by 5 and divide by 5. So these two, I'm going to go to the next line. These two right here, 25 divided by 5, that would leave a 5 in the top. These two, when you divide, that's going to be a 3, and that leaves a 3 in the bottom. And then this 4 is still there. And the thing separating this number from this number is the multiplication. And so finally, it's going to be 5/12. So with these extra credit problems, there's going to be times when I do problems that are a little more challenging, or I'll teach you a newer, different way. Sometimes they're going to be straight review, but sometimes they'll be a little more challenging. But that's okay, it makes it more fun. So with this, I need to combine these two fractions. Later, I'll worry about this one. So to combine these two, I have to make the denominators the same. And if I multiply this by a 3, it would become a 21. But if you multiply the bottom by 3, then you also have to multiply the top by 3. So this first fraction right here is going to become 9/21 plus 2/21. And this 1/42 I'm going to do as the last step. So now these two can be combined. It's going to be 11/21. And then finally, I'm ready to deal with this 1/42. So again, I have to have a common denominator, but then I notice that this, if I multiply by 2, is going to turn into a 42. So multiply the bottom and the top by 2, so it becomes 22/42. And then I can finally subtract. So the answer is going to be that the denominator is 42, and then here just subtract 22 minus 1, so it's 21. And then with fractions, at the end, you always have to see if you could reduce. Well, this could actually be divided by 21, and this could be divided by 21. So that's how I'm going to reduce it. Divide by 21, divide by 21. It would leave a 1 on the top, 21 divided by 21, and it would leave a 2 on the bottom. So the final answer is that it's 1/2. On to number 4. So we need to do exponents first. So that means that this, which is a -7, needs to be squared. A -7 times -7 would be +49. But this is also in the parentheses, so the 2 also needs to be squared. And a 2 squared is 4. Once again, to add fractions, we need a common denominator. So what I can do is I can change both of these into the number 20. This one I'll have to multiply by 5. So this is now going to be out of 20. And then 49 times 5. So over here on my scratch paper, 49 times 5. This is going to be 9 times 5 is 45. And then 5 times 4 would be 20. With 4 more is 24. So it's 245. And then plus, oh, I forgot to change this one. I was so busy with my work over here. This one I need to change to be a 20 also. So I'll need to multiply this by 4. But if you do that to the denominator, you have to do it to the top also. So this would be a 4 on top and a 20 on the bottom. And then finally, the answer would be 20 in the bottom, or the denominator. And when you add the 245 plus 4, that would be 249. And then you have to think, is there anything that will divide into 20 and 249? Well, this is an even number, but this is not an even number, so 2 will not divide into it. 4 would not divide into it. The only other thing that will divide into 20, besides the 2, the 4, next would be a 5. What about a 5? But a 5 won't divide into this. Also, a 10 would divide into 20, but this doesn't end in 0, so a 10 doesn't work. So that is reduced. And the general rule with fractions is, at the end, as long as you've reduced it, you're done. You could write this as a mixed number if you want to, but you don't actually have to. As long as it's reduced, then you're done. And then, talking about fraction fun, look at this. How about 4 fractions? At first, it may seem like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work, except you can get all of these denominators to turn into 16s. All you have to do is this one, multiply by 8 on the top and the bottom. So this one would be 8 over 16. This second one, to change this to a 16, multiply by 4. So this second one would be 4 over 16. This one, multiply by 2. And so this one is 2 over 16. And the last one doesn't need to be changed. So now that we have the denominators the same, that means that the answer is going to have 16 in the denominator. Then we just have to add these up. So 8 and 4, that would be 12, 13, 14, 15. And there's nothing that will divide into both 15 and 16, so even though it looked like it's going to take a while, it actually was a pretty fast problem. 15 over 16. So with this one, we could go ahead and do it the regular way, get a common denominator. So this I would need to change into the number 70 by multiplying by 10. This I would have to change into the number 70 by multiplying by 7. But I want to show you a different way. And basically the different way goes like this. You cross multiply these two things. So it's going to be 5 times 10. I realize that's 50, but I'm trying to show my work. Next, you cross multiply these two. So 7 times 3. And then whatever this sign is, you put it right here. And then last, you just multiply across the bottom. So 7 times 10. So we're almost done. This would be 50. This would be 21. And the denominator would be 70. And so finally, when you add these two, that's going to be 71 over 70. And there's nothing that's going to divide into both 71 and 70, so we're done. Because of the parentheses, we need to add these two guys first of all. And I could change this into a 12, and I could change this into a 12. So that's going to be the common denominator. So multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. So in the parentheses, this one is going to be 2 over 12. For this one, if I change the denominator into a 12, I would multiply by 3 on the bottom and the top. So this would become 9 over 12. And then to finish inside the parentheses, adding these two together, a 2 plus a 9, that's going to be 11 divided by 12. Now that I've done the adding, I don't need parentheses anymore. And I can go ahead and start working on this. To divide means invert and multiply. So to divide by the fraction 1 over 12 means that you change it to multiplication, but then you invert this fraction. And we could multiply across the top and then multiply across the bottom and then at the end reduce, but it would be easier to just say 12 divides into 12 one time. And so that means that we've got 11 times 1, so 11 on the top over 1. But then that means 11 divided by 1, so the answer is 11. So this one is straightforward. First of all, you could rewrite 9 as 9 over 1. Then invert and multiply. So invert the second fraction, becomes 1 over 9. And again, I think it's easier to reduce right now. Say a 3 will divide into a 9 3 times. So on the top, the only thing left is the number 1. On the bottom, there's 14 times 3. So 14 times 3, this would be a 12. 3 plus 1 more, so it's 42. So the answer would be 1 over 42. Okay, just 2 more to go. So with this, in the last problem, the last 2 problems, I said, well, go ahead and reduce. But with this one, I'm not going to do that. The reason is, if I multiply across, then I get a 6 in the denominator. And later, when I have to deal with this fraction, I'm going to have 6 in the denominator. So with this problem, I'm going to go ahead and multiply this, multiply on the top, and that way I'm all ready for the next step because I already have the common denominator. So when you add these two together, the answer is going to be 6 in the denominator, and then just add the 2 and the 1, so it's 3. And then you could reduce because this could be divided by 3 and this could be divided by 3. So it would leave a 1 on the top and then a 2 on the bottom. And for the last one, I'm going to show you a different way to divide fractions. See what you think about this. So divide could also mean you've got a fraction. So this symbol right here, divide, could also be written this way, divide. And then we would have this, 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3. and then it's divided by this, 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5. If you're going to use this method that I'm showing you on number 10, you have to make sure that you make one big fraction bar so that it's understood all of this is in the numerator and all of this is in the denominator. That's really what these parentheses are saying. It's saying divided by all of this. And so when I make this big fraction bar, I'm saying divided by all of this. Okay, so here's the new method. It's actually not new, but it's the first time I'm using it in this class. Okay, so you look at the denominators, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is the least common denominator for all of them? So what we're going to do is take care of all the fractions at once. Well, for these two, I would need the number 20. I can also change this one into a 20. So the number 20 is working so far, but 20 will not work for this. 3 will not divide into a 20. So actually, if I have to include the numbers 4 and 5 and 3, so that all those numbers are in the denominator, then this would actually be a 60. I don't have to include the 2 because actually a 4 already has a 2 in it, so this 2 is already taken care of. Okay, here's the new way. Now what you do is multiply this by 60 and multiply this by 60. So I'm just multiplying the top and the bottom by the same thing, and then distribute. So this would be 60 divided by 2 is 30. Then distribute it over to here, and it would be 60 divided by 3 is 20. Distribute right here, it would be 60 divided by 4 is 15. And then finally, distribute it over here, 60 divided by 5 is 12. And so for the numerator, there would be 30 plus 20. For the denominator, 15 plus 12 is 27. And there's nothing that will divide into these two, so we're done. So by doing this, it takes these 4 fractions and simplifies them to be these 4 whole numbers. It's a faster way to do it. Okay, that's the extra credit. See you soon.